PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and in this video we're going to be talking about compensated saddles on my Telecaster. Reason being, I was looking at some comments that people have been leaving on videos recently, and the video where I did the replacement on the saddles on this guitar was quite a popular one, and somebody left a comment recently saying, I've seen so many videos of people saying that compensated saddles are better, but no one's really telling me why. So I thought, oh, maybe that was a bit of an oversight on my original video. So let's do something about that today and talk about intonation, the problems of the traditional Telecaster saddle, and why the compensated saddles are an improvement, and why I thought it was a worthwhile upgrade on this particular guitar to put these saddles on. So let's get into it. Let's start by taking a look at the bridge on my Fender USA Standard Strat. So this is set up and the intonation's been dialed in, and as you can see, the saddles are in kind of a zigzag pattern. They're going forward and then back and then forward again. So what we've got here is the bottom E string is set a little back, A string is slightly forward of that, D string is noticeably forward from that, then the G quite a ways back, and then forward for the B and forward again for the E. But what that means is the guitar's perfectly intonated. So if I tune the strings to the note that I expect the open string to be, fret that string at the 12th fret, the note that I'm hearing at the 12th fret is exactly the same note as the open string but one octave higher, and any fretted note along the fingerboard will be exactly the note that you're expecting to hear. So if I fret, the argument's sake, the top E string at the 3rd fret, I will hear a G, and it will be pretty much bang on a G note. If these saddles were set slightly differently, maybe a little too far forward or a little too far back, then even if I tune the open string to be exactly what I wanted, then the fretted note would be slightly sharp or slightly flat depending on how out the intonation is. So in use, for all the guitar is like in tune with open strings, when I'm playing the guitar and using fretted notes, it would actually sound slightly out of tune. By dialing in the intonations for this is a 25.5-inch scale length guitar, each individual string will be slightly more or slightly less than 25.5 inches in length, depending on whether I have to set the intonation by pulling the saddle back or taking the saddle forward. So that's great with a Strat where each individual string has its own adjustable saddle. Now, I haven't got the Telecaster with the traditional saddles on, but here's a photograph of one that I took before I did the saddle replacement. And here you can see that the saddles are actually in pairs. So if you think about what we've had to do with the intonation here, I've had to set the saddle position, something that's a bit of a compromise. So like on the bottom 2 strings, the E wants to be slightly back from where the A string sits, but because I'm setting the intonation in pairs, what probably means is that the E string will be intonated slightly sharp, because it's slightly shorter than it needs to be, and the A string will be intonated slightly flat because it's slightly longer than it needs to be. Similarly, on the top 2 strings, the B will be intonated slightly sharp because it's slightly forward, and the E will be intonated slightly flat because it's a bit further back. But what's happened with the D and the G strings, because we compare what that looks like on the Strat with the intonation set, the D needs to be quite a way forward from where the G is, and obviously we can't do that with the saddle here. So there's a much bigger compromise going on, that the D will be, relatively speaking, much flatter in intonation because it's longer than it needs to be, and the G string will be noticeably sharper than it needs to be because it's forward and so the string's a little bit shorter. But it's a compromise. There's an argument that having the big solid saddle like this, the pair, spanning a pair of strings, you get a bigger piece of metal, better transference of vibration into the guitar body, better sound and all that. But that comes at the expense of intonation. This is the problem that the compensated saddles are trying to solve. So let's take a look at those. So here's the Telecaster with the compensated saddles. Now, because the strings are on, it's possibly not that clear to see, but if you look at the way the bottom E string's sitting here, you might be able to see there's a little cutaway here, so that the point of contact where the E string's actually making contact with the saddle is slightly behind the center point. And on the A string, the way the saddle's been machined, the A string is actually slightly forward at the center point, so we've got that diagonal sort of line going across. So the E to the A, the E's further back than the A string, so that gets the intonation where we need it to be. And similarly on the B and the E strings, the B is slightly behind the E, So we've got that diagonal line there. And if we look at the middle one, it's actually the opposite. The D string is slightly forward of the center point and the G is slightly behind the center point. So remember how the strat looked. We had this diagonal sort of pattern going across on E, A and D, and then back on G, B and E. And we've got a similar pattern here. So it's not as obvious to see with the strings being on, but if you look closely, you might be able to see where the strings are relative to the center point of the saddles. You can see we've got that similar sort of pattern. The precise position varies slightly, just factors like the guitar, the string gauge that I'm using and whatnot. The specific length of the string compared to what's on the Strat would be maybe a little different, but the general pattern of that diagonal sort of pattern is the same, and that's what the compensated saddles bring to the party. They allow us to get an intonation that's closer to what it needs to be. Closer, in fact, it's bang on. When I set this guitar up, I set the intonation on these, tune the open string, play the fretted note at the 12th, and it was absolutely bang on, 1 octave above where it needed to be. And any fretted note was exactly where I expected to be. Whereas, like I say, with the traditional saddles, the intonation was always a bit of a compromise, so it wasn't quite as perfectly in tune. So these definitely do the job. So it's all about intonation. It's about getting the guitar to sound as in tune as it possibly can be right the way across the fingerboard. So hopefully that's cleared up some of the mystery. If you found the video useful and you enjoyed it, please click the like button down there. If you really enjoyed it and you want to see other videos that I post on the channel, then please click subscribe, which is also down there, and click the bell icon so you get notified of any new videos that I upload on the channel. Now, I saw the comment about the saddles just because I was browsing around on my channel looking for something. YouTube's a bit rubbish about notifying me when people do leave comments. So if there's something specifically you want to ask me, whether it's about guitar gear, guitar playing, music theory, anything at all, you're better off going here, fill that form in, and that way the question comes direct to me, and guarantee to see it and then get around to answering your question in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.